Welcome to the Lord and Richards Show, a program that will enable you to become more financially independent and prosperous from a biblical point of view. Tune in each week to learn how to prosper through good markets and bad. Now, here's our co-hosts, Colin Richards, your biblical investment advisor, and Dylan Schoonover.
Welcome into the Lord and Richards Show. My name is Dylan Schoonover. I'm joined alongside Colin Richards, CEO and founder of Lord and Richards. Colin, it's great to have you here today.
My pleasure, Dylan.
Today we're talking about the succession of wealth. Those, especially those who are high earners or high income possessors, they're going to want to take their money and they're going to be able to know that when they pass away, the wealth is going to be distributed wisely to where it's going. And so I think one of the questions is how do we avoid some of the tax traps out there? How do we make sure that, not the wrong people end up with the money in their hands? So there's a lot going into this on the front end to make sure that succession, it's a hard word to say, is set up correctly.
You're very successful at saying succession.
Well, I am not going to get in a word battle with you, I'll tell you that. But anyway, tell me a little bit about how we navigate this from front to back.
Well, I've used the analogy before, and I'll change my analogy from the toilet to a funnel.
Yeah,
but
thank you.
basically, at the end of life, there's a great funnel sucking everything down the drain, and it's taking your money and distributing it to the government or hospitals or nursing homes. And that's kind of the natural course, and we've got to get ahead of that and develop strategies, plans, even legal documents that will avoid that occurring. And so what you're describing, wealth succession, wealth planning for the next generation, we often call estate planning, but we think only about death, but it's all about what we do in life that sets things up for success when we pass on.
Yeah, it can be really difficult. Let's say you've got a brother, let's call him Mark. So Mark Richards is sitting there and he's trying to navigate, what to do with his money. If he walks into your office, he's both your family, but he's also going to, be a client of yours. How do you navigate him through what to do with his money?
So let's take this hypothetical Mark, and if he comes in, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to sit down and understand what his priorities are, right? So if Mark has shared that, I definitely want to do something and leave behind something for my kids, or I definitely have some charitable intent, or no, I'd actually like to figure out a way to spend every last dime so that the last check bounces, then we can help do that, but he's going to have to share it openly with us in our first meeting together.
Yeah, I think that's important because otherwise you might end up with a situation where your succession of wealth ends up in, a person that really shouldn't be having the money. Like God forbid Mark passes away. He doesn't necessarily like one of his second wife's children. How do you mitigate that? How do you make sure that doesn't happen?
Well, the classic example, and I've heard of this happening, where literally you've left in place documents that are out of date that name your ex-wife as the heir to your estate, right? Or somebody maybe you no longer have a good relationship with. Some people are able to navigate that a little better, but being in that position where the wrong person gets your wealth is something that's completely avoidable and simply involves delegating that task, because we kick it down the road, right? We don't want to really mess with those documents, the wills and trusts and other things that are needed to pass wealth on successfully to the next generation. But it's so easy and it can be delegated. And the neat thing is at Lord and Richards, we've actually developed a way that you can do that for free, and it costs you nothing, because we do all of our planning for our clients at no cost to them.
Wow, that sounds incredible, and we need to hear about that, because the last thing you want is, you to choke on Neuf Chatel and they pass away, and then you need something where you got to hand the money off to somebody you don't want to hand it off to.
Well, I don't know if you're implying that I need to do low-fat cream cheese, which is what Neuf Chatel is, but yes, I think no matter how you go, the last thing you want to have happen is for the wrong person to end up with that money. So the key, of course, is planning. In the end, if you don't want your assets to wind up in the wrong place, then you've got to plan in advance, get the documents in place, and delegate that. That's something that we can really help you with so that you don't keep kicking the can down the road.
Yeah, and you mentioned that there's an option that we can set this up for free for clients. What does that look like?
Well, for those who are comfortable working in an online environment, we actually have invested heavily in software that will allow you to go through a very simple, easy to use online experience, put down who you want to leave the money to, or whether you're married or whether you own property. And we can set these documents up and have a very simple, easy, free experience in building a will, advanced healthcare directives, powers of attorneys, even trusts. So there's a level of advanced planning that can be done. Now, for those who say, well, I'm not really comfortable in that environment, of course we can do it live, and we can do it at a greatly reduced rate, which we've negotiated for our clients.
And the first part of that statement you can all do online, and it's complimentary and they can walk through it very self-intuitive?
Yes, and I think what would come to my mind, wait a minute, is that going to be legal? Absolutely. These documents are perfectly legal and accepted in all 50 states. And the cool thing is, if you have that plan is in our system, so we always have it for reference to make sure your financial plan and your estate plan work together. And if you move or relocate or life changes, all of those adjustments are free. You don't have to pay somebody an hourly rate just to keep your plan up to date.
So we work with a lot of clients that have quite high affluence. Even had one that we were talking about recently that has $30 million in a portfolio of assets. And so when we're looking at a succession of wealth for someone who is on the higher side of things, how do you go about structuring that at Lord & Richards? There's a lot going on, right?
Right. As you increase the asset size, it doesn't necessarily mean that person is getting a more personalized or friendly experience. We're treating all of our clients with the same love, care, and respect, but they may need some more advanced levels of tax planning and estate planning. And so naturally, the tools need to become more sophisticated at that level, and we're equipped to do that. So we can employ special kinds of trusts that allow us to shield assets from paying excess taxes, including estate taxes. We can build out special financial tools that can cut down on the tax burden while you're investing. You're able to invest tax-free instead of all that money being subject to future taxation, and on it goes.
And you do that all from the, just right across the table with folks, helping them walk them through every single step there?
Yeah, well, first we get the nerd squad behind the scenes, our financial planners, and they're going to build and design that. But everything is customized to you. It's personal. It reflects what's important to you. And so you're not getting a cookie cutter solution. You're having a dialogue, and we're making adjustments to tailor the plan to your wishes.
How do we know, what's best for someone? What do you guys do? What are indicators that you're looking at to make sure that we're meeting the needs of that particular client, to make sure it is not cookie cutter?
Yeah, the most important thing is to test. And so although we don't know the future, we don't have a crystal ball, we actually use dozens of data points on a portfolio and project out into the future, often even if you want to live to 100 years old, if you're lucky enough to do that and do that healthy. I think most of my clients say, if I'm going to live a long time, I want to be healthy. But then we're going to project out 10,000 different scenarios. And these aren't like kind of the classic, what we call Monte Carlo simulations that every advisor runs. Those are usually based on generic solutions like, let's assume you get this much return on the market, or let's assume tax rates stay the same forever. We're actually able to go in and customize all those data points. Maybe you get sick and have extra healthcare costs. Maybe your spouse passes early, leaving you with less guaranteed income from Social Security or pensions. Maybe we go through a severe down market. We're going to test all that range of possibilities and more, and come back with a probability of success. And we're shooting for 100%. Not everybody can get 100%, but if we're in our 90+%, most people feel pretty confident to take the next step and enjoy their retirement and step away from the job.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Well, when we come back from the break, let's talk about a couple real examples that have happened, because unfortunately there have been some people that have passed away that you guys have been stewarding within Lord & Richards, and it's been something that you aren't just talking about from a hypothetical perspective, but actually in reality. So when we come back from the break, we're going to talk about that. Stay tuned.
You're watching the Lord & Richards Show, a program that can help you become more financially independent. Tune in to learn how you could become prosperous during good times and bad.
Welcome back into the Lord & Richards Show, talking with Colin Richards, CEO and founder of Lord & Richards, about succession of wealth, how we go about transferring it. Different things happen along the way in people's journeys, sometimes unexpectedly, but we try to plan for the unexpected. You've had a couple situations, maybe more than you'd like in your career, where people have unfortunately passed away, but you guys have been prepared for it. You had one especially touching story. Oftentimes you tell it at your live events. Kind of walk our viewers and listeners through kind of what happened and how you made sure that everybody was prepared when a bad diagnosis came along.
Yeah, one of the challenges, of course, of having a lifelong relationship with our clients, there's a lot of blessings that involve getting to know them, participating in their lives, going to their weddings, enjoying those special celebrations around the grandkids, and we love that part of it. And yet we also are glad that we can be there when our clients are going through some of the most difficult times. And one of our clients just especially stands out the circumstances because they were younger when he received a terminal diagnosis. And you know, we expect life to play out a certain way and for our goals and dreams to be fulfilled over decades-long retirement. But when you find out in your 50s that you have a terminal illness, suddenly all those things change. But what was interesting is this client had come to us, they had actually heard us on the radio, they had moved to another facility in the same company in our local area from across the country. And we actually developed a friendship, you know, spent some events together like New Year's and so forth at other friends' house. And so as part of that journey, we mapped out a financial strategy. We call it a retirement freedom roadmap. And that roadmap is actually bound for our clients and then constantly and continually updated. And in that roadmap, we had some of the, you know, kind of unpleasant topics that we want to discuss when we're feeling great and healthy and everything's going well. We talked about what would happen if, you know, if this particular client, the husband passed away early or the wife passed away early. What would happen if they got sick? You know, we don't really like talking about that, but by talking about them when the sun is shining and the sky is clear and the birds are singing, you know, we can have a very intelligent, rational, non-emotional conversation. So all that was in place and had been tested as I've described. And then I remember the day when this couple sat down with me, and with tears in their eyes, the husband expressed that he had been diagnosed with a terminal illness, a cancer, that was expected to take his life within the next year. And as sad as that was, and as we shared a time of crying together and of praying together, I was able to reassure them. I said, look, we've already prepared for this in your plan. This has already been addressed. Now, the success of their plan was built on their willingness to plan and to do the things that were necessary, like saving their money. So it wasn't us that created the success. It was us that helped them avoid the pitfalls that could rob them of the success to which they were entitled. And so to be able to have that conversation was wonderful. But just for peace of mind, the husband asked me, hey, could we just run some different scenarios? And by the time we had finished, we had run 7 completely different financial plans based on different outcomes. If he was healed from his disease, or if he was disabled, or was able to work a little bit longer and then retire, all these different outcomes. And of course, then what would happen if he just passed away from it? And in every single outcome, success was assured, both not just by what we saw in the paper, but by the math and the science. So that was another tearful moment, tears of joy, as he knew that it was going to be okay. Of course, as time passed and his illness worsened, we were not able to get together as much with him, continued to get together with his wife. And I remember the day when the funeral occurred, we couldn't attend. It was during COVID, so we had to watch it online. That was a tragic circumstance for a lot of people during that era. But then I remember his wife came in and sat down, you know, and it was time. We had had all the, she had had time to kind of process and move past the affairs around the funeral itself. And she sat down and she put a book down, and I didn't know this book existed, and she opened it up and the first page said, "When I Die," and it was written in her husband's handwriting. And the first point on that was "See Colin" and Lord and Richards. What a weight that was at first. I thought, wow, that this was the amount of trust that they were placing in us. But of course, I knew that that's what we're here for. And so we did it again, and we retested the portfolio and assured her, you are okay. And she never has to work another day in her life. She's had the opportunity to move across the country, spend time with some family there that they had left behind, then move back and just kind of establish her new life. She, of course, grieves the loss of her husband. But you know what was exciting is even during that time, he was granted a little extra time and saw a child married and also saw a new grandbaby come into their lives. So he was given some gifts. And you know, he was able to approach that joyfully, not worry about the financial ramifications, and then she was able to move on. And you know, that's what it's all about for us at Lord and Richards, to allow our clients to come to a place where they don't worry. Yes, bad things can happen, but all the things that we can control, we will control, and we'll do it on our client's behalf.
Incredible. Just that probably makes everything you do very fulfilling.
It does, and our clients don't maybe always realize this, but we lose sleep over them so that they can sleep comfortably, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully one day somebody, when I lose my mind and can't control my own portfolio, I'll have somebody that I can trust. You know? But in the meantime, our kind of reason for existence, and we state this as our mission, is to allow our clients to achieve financial and retirement freedom so that they can do amazing things with the resources that God has given them.
There's probably people out there listening and watching that, they don't have that backup plan. They don't have that succession plan in place. It's not uncommon that we see when a couple walks in, whether the male or the female, someone is the very dominant leader of the finances, and the other person doesn't always pay a lot of attention. It can be either sex, but wouldn't you encourage them to take action if they're hearing this, as opposed to continue to sit on the sidelines in case something does develop?
Oh, of course, Dylan. Yeah, that's a asked and answered question, because what can happen too, and this is a variation on what you just said, is that the one spouse is really drilled in on building a financial plan for the family, and they actually have kind of taken this on. Maybe they've used AI tools or whatever. Those plans do not address the breadth of what we've been talking about. But even if they do, the problem is that their spouse who's not as engaged or interested in that is in the dark. And so what I've seen is that some kind of do-it-yourselfers will come to that realization and say, you know what? Although I like to do it for myself, I want my spouse, who's maybe not as engaged, to have a relationship with somebody so that if something happens to me, they know and are comfortable with this relationship that they're going to be taken care of.
Yeah, I think that would be very important. We see that all the time, that sometimes people come in and say, I'm a little late into this, but we need some help. And I think that is also, it's a little bit of a pride factor, but maybe a trust factor too, of releasing that trust. In your example of the story, obviously they had released, trust to you, clearly, because when she came back with the book, it said, see Colin, right? It didn't say, you might consider Lord and Richards, or maybe you should worry about your money now, or we didn't do anything. Like, they had placed whole trust in you, and that has to feel really good. And, it should instill confidence in not just you, but the whole team, to know we are making a big difference.
Yeah, and I tell people who are about to retire for the first time, so that's part of the group that we serve, is people that aren't yet retired, that you get one shot at this. So it's literally like a one-shot deal. We have done this thousands of times. And so doing it yourself is an option, it always is, but do you literally want to perform brain surgery on yourself? Get the mirror out there. And, we've all seen that depicted somewhere, somebody doing surgery on themselves. Or would you like some help with that? If you would like some help and you don't like the idea of paying for somebody to build a plan for you, then consider talking to us, because first of all, for all of our clients, Lord and Richards does all of the comprehensive planning at no cost to you. So there's not a reason to get help.
Definitely not. Well, when we come back from the break, we're going to talk about a few final pitfalls and make sure that your succession of your wealth goes exactly how you want and doesn't fall into those traps.
You're watching The Lord and Richards Show, a program that can help you become more financially independent. Tune in to learn how you could become prosperous during good times and bad.
Welcome back to the Lord and Richards Show. We are talking about succession planning and of course, how we pass wealth on. It's super important. And there's a lot of pitfalls out there, Colin. People don't want to believe it. They're going through retirement and they just almost like they don't want to acknowledge something is real. Much like, people think that, well, the Sasquatch is not real. They also don't think that retirement problems are real when we get to the end of the line here, where we've got to think about where is our money going. And so it's very important to say, okay, we've got pitfalls out there, like over gifting too early, underfunded trusts, possibly outdated wills. There's lots of things we get to at the end here that I think could be problems. So why is it so important that before we pass on, that our succession is buttoned up?
Well, I think the first and most important thing is to establish that Sasquatch is real.
It could be.
I believe
Have you seen him at your property?
Actually, we don't have Sasquatch in the Colorado foothills. We have
mountain
lions and tigers and bears. Maybe not the tigers.
You definitely got the bears. I know you got the bears.
Yeah, so that I don't put my big foot in my mouth, let me just say that, yeah, the problem is there are real pitfalls, real things that people kind of put their head in the sand about. Now, not the Lord and Richards client. Our clients are well educated and understand that there are things like giving away money that are important to be handled properly. We've talked a little bit about different strategies for inheritance, and gifting is one of those. You can give up to $19,000 currently to anybody you want, and there's no gift tax applied to that. You can give, as a husband-wife team, you can give $38,000, so whether that's your kids or just somebody else. So there's a lot of ways to start moving money off of your plate so that it doesn't get into the hands of the government and healthcare institutions like hospitals and nursing homes. But I think probably one of the key areas that is a big pitfall is this kicking of the can down the road when it comes to our estate planning. And probably at least 2/3 of the people I talk to do not have a current and updated estate plan. And as I shared in our prior segment, there's no reason to avoid that. It's not about the cost. First of all, the costs can be manageable, but Lord and Richards has handled that for all of our clients by providing an outlet for free estate planning. And so you've got to get those documents in place, and you've got to get the planning in place to make sure things happen the way you want them to happen, not the way the government has set it up to happen.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of success in your succession of wealth transfer if you haven't set these things up. And one of the things that we didn't touch on as much in one of our estate planning segments was the fact that it can get ugly between family members if things aren't set up. You've probably seen that a few times in your career.
Yes, I have, and it can get ugly even if things are set up.
Oh, wow.
And what happens is the legal tools that are in place settle those arguments before they even gain any traction. But yes, it's worse when we don't have a will, or here's something to keep in mind, a will can be contested. So although we often associate trusts with higher net worth, I, again, recommend it at all levels of net worth as not only a planning tool or an I love you document, but also as an incontestable source of direction about our estate plan. So a will, you could actually have the kids or the exes or whatever duking it out and contest that in death court, probate, whereas with a trust, you can pass those assets on, or with certain types of investments where beneficiaries are already on the investment itself. So we're not even having to rely on the trust. So take a life insurance policy, that's an easy one. It's gonna go straight to that beneficiary, whoever's written there, as long as they're still alive.
Yeah. So in the same vein, are you an advocate or not so much of joint ownership of things? Like, you know, if people remarry sometimes they come together and they've got multiple, sets of assets, but take cars, for example, maybe they're only each on their own car. Would you actually make that a joint ownership situation?
So here's an example of personal failure, right? We've all heard of the cobbler's kids who have no shoes, right? So as a financial advisor, I should know better that we need to make sure all our assets are titled properly. But often I'm the guy out there making the car purchase, right? It's something that I enjoy. I like the negotiation process. I remember my favorite car negotiation where I literally told the guy, what's it gonna take to get me in this car? And the salesman next to him started laughing over the top of the cubicle. And then I watched as he went out and begged his manager to accept my price on his hands and knees in the parking lot. So I love negotiation. But the problem is it's real easy then to set it up as a single owner and to say, oh, I'll come back later and add my wife or whoever needs to be the joint owner. And so often those things don't get done. And I have to say guilty as charged. So right now, our cars are in different ownership than they should be. But you can use joint ownership. You can use another vehicle called transfer on death. And by that, I don't mean a car vehicle. I mean another way of titling it. So TOD, POD, those are ways that you can move that asset quickly to the next person. You really want to have that on your bank account so that if something happens to you, whether it's health or whether you passed away, your spouse has complete access to that money, or whoever it is that you want to be joint on those accounts. So a lot of those things can be joint. However, our IRAs and 401ks cannot be joint. IRA, think about the title.
Correct.
Individual retirement account.
But with that, you can have a designated beneficiary and you don't have to go through probate. They just go straight on through if you've got the beneficiary identified, correct?
That's right. So a beneficiary of an IRA gets that money immediately. Now, some people make a mistake here is they put the trust down as the beneficiary. So they're like, I'm going to be really fancy and that way I never have to change the beneficiaries again on my IRA. Well, the problem is that by having that payable to a trust on death, all those taxes are going to have to be paid out immediately rather than being able to take advantage of the full 10 years. And so we don't want to do that. We don't want to put a trust as beneficiary. We want to put the actual individuals that we want that money to go to.
I think the summary is this can get confusing very quick if you're not working with a professional. So coming in to Lord & Richards, the team can take care of that, no problem, all these different things we're discussing?
Oh, absolutely. I've used the junk drawer analogy already, and the idea is, a lot of times people have all these financial concerns, financial instruments, many different accounts. We love to organize that stuff. My wife had a couple of friends come in recently who just really loved organizing garages. And for me, it was like the last thing I wanted to do. And now I have this beautiful, clean garage. It'll probably last a month before it's a mess again. But that's our job at Lord & Richards. Let us take that junk drawer of needs and concerns and counts and assets and organize that into a beautiful financial plan.
Makes a lot of sense. Take advantage of it, folks. Visit the website, talk to us online, give us a call. We'd love to see you very soon. That's it for the Lord & Richards Show today.
Just pick up the phone and give us a call at 720-372-0400. That's 720-372-0400 for your complimentary retirement freedom review. Or check us out online at lordandrichards.com.
Take the first step toward securing your financial future. Request an appointment today. Whether you're planning for retirement, managing your wealth, or optimizing your business finances, we're ready to help you achieve your goals. Visit us online at lordandrichards.com for your complimentary retirement freedom review. Investment advisory services offered through Lord & Richards Wealth Management, a registered investment advisor.